we do not have ownership over the soils and the seas and the trees. We only have ownership over that which we create, that which we build. Of course, it's all fine and well having rights. It's all fine and well being up your mountain and shouting, I have rights, I have freedoms. But if you can't enforce the duties and the obligations and the responsibilities upon those who are breaching your rights, then those rights count for nothing. And so that's why I have proposed into the United Nations an international crime of ecocide, by recognizing that the mass destruction, damage, or loss of ecosystems is a crime. We can then impose duties and obligations on individuals. Once we have that in place, people like me, lawyers, can then take prosecutions against individuals who are, whether for profit or for other motivations, going in and creating damage, destruction, or loss of ecosystems. Whether or not that's a big corporate entity that's going in and illegally logging, or whether or not it's a landowner who is basically taking away his wetlands so that he can build upon them.
People think that the charging a rent on land for everybody would mean that we would destroy our green belt and our wilderness. But this is the very opposite of what I think will happen, because wilderness areas will become of value. The green lands, the wild lands are the cheapest land, and so developers are trying everything to exploit this land. We're destroying wild land. This will change completely with a rental charge on land, and we will actually start valuing wild land. It will have an inherent benefit, and as soon as you can build a house on that land, it will then become an expensive piece of land to own, so people will stop trying to exploit our wilderness areas, and we'll save our green places for our future generations.
Our goal should be a tax of 100% or close to 100% on the rents associated with those natural resources.
Thank you. That was a very moving film.
Thank you. I wanted to just sort of add, there's a point that's not really raised in the film in relation to the impact of collecting these rents of land, these rising land values. In terms of urban sprawl, I mean, Peter quite rightly points out at the end, you know, this is a way of protecting wild land and species, the environment, but it's also a way of preventing urban sprawl because there's so much unused, derelict or underused land within urban centres, within cities. I mean, in London, there's only over 900 hectares of land that is unused or derelict. There's over 2,000 hectares of land that has been previously developed but now is ripe for redevelopment that is not being developed. So, you know, in the midst of a housing crisis, that raises a lot of questions and a lot of implications attached to that. Why do we have urban sprawl? Because there is an artificial scarcity in cities, forcing people out and development out to the margins, into the green belt, into the countryside where the land is cheaper. That is why there is pressure, and it's all connected to the monopoly and the ownership of land, because those rising values that we all create just by our mere existence, by the work we do, by our investment, by our industry, all feeds into rising land values and is all pocketed by landowners. And this is the stark truth, the reality of our economic system. But very rarely does one hear this spoken of in the media, in the mainstream media. So we have to really seriously look at this issue. Someone told me once, well, you know, this idea of raising revenue from land, I mean, it's very, very subversive, isn't it? Well, I said, well, subversive, I mean, isn't the current model we live under subversive? I mean, isn't it subverting natural law? Natural law being that every child, you know, every human being has a birthright to access land, to have access to land. Once that land is privately owned and monopolized, we forego that birthright at birth unless we're landowners or have access to land. So this fundamentally is the cause of the concentration of wealth, the rise of wealth of the very tiny, tiny minority of people, and all the power that is associated with that, and all the corruption that is associated with that in our political system and in our institutions, and our financial institutions as well. Because the fact of the matter is, it's all very well blaming the banks. You know, you love to blame and bash the banks and the financial institutions, but the fact of the matter is that the collateral that has been lent out by the banks and the financial institutions has always primarily been for real estate, for the purchasing of land fundamentally. Why is that? Because of the speculative nature of that lending, the belief that land values will continue to rise inexorably. This bubble will just completely continue to inflate. And that's why this reckless lending has happened. And that's why so many people want to buy into this. They want to become. There aren't just people who want a foothold on the ladder, in the housing ladder, who want to own a home to live in. There are lots and lots of people who are behaving the way the aristocracy behaved in the past, the way the gentry behaved in the past, in monopolizing, in taking over more and more land as much as they possibly could.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah, just a couple of minutes long.
okay, sorry, I didn't realize. I wasn't going to speak that long. Anyway, so just in closing, this is the dilemma we face. We talk about fighting the 1%, you know, or the top 1%. But there's in some ways, a much more troubling sort of 60%, if you will, of homeowners, you know, middle-class homeowners who own their homes, who have mortgages on their homes, don't actually own their home really because they've got these mortgages, but there's nonetheless homeowners hoping to see the value of their properties rise within the land market. And that is the difficulty we face. That is the reality we face. That is why, you know, the Bank of England says well, you know, in some way this is really a no-brainer doing, you know, bringing in these reforms, but the politicians are resistant. They don't want to do it. So that's the big question. That's the big battle we fight, is why aren't the politicians doing this? And we have to really look at ourselves very much as we look at other people and place the blame on other people. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks. That was really brilliant. Sorry to bring to a slight halt. Now,